Hey, good morning, Facebook. Good morning, Shining Light Church family, and any friends and family that are watching. It's good to come to you from Chattanooga, Tennessee. And I'm here sitting in my car because it was really loud out in the parking garage. And I'm in the parking garage about to go inside and see Micah and spend a couple hours with him while Christy is resting this morning. As you can see, I've got my mask ready to go in. And I've got bracelets covering all my wrists. These are all for the different days that I've been there. And so I'm waiting for today's bracelet and see what color it is. And I decided to keep wearing them and not cut them off. So random fact. But anyway, to give a quick update on Micah, he is doing well. He's still in the ventilator, so they're giving him oxygen. And his oxygen's really been fluctuating back and forth. He'll do well, and then he'll not do well. And so it's really a timing thing. And he's only 5 days old, so he's very young still. I think the doctors are okay with where he's at. He is actually eating. He was only having an IV, and now he's actually eating. And so that, not through a bottle or anything, it's still through a feeding tube. But that's good because he gets extra nutrients and the better nutrients than what he can get through an IV. So he's doing well. Mommy's doing well. She's still in some pain from the surgery, but she is recovering. And her mom actually was down for a couple of days, and she just left. And actually her sister, who she's close to, came down, and she's going to be here for a couple of days just to spend time with Christy and myself. So I think that's the update. If you got any questions, feel free to shoot me an email or a text or anything like that. And I'm to the point where it's not quite as busy right now, and not as many people are texting or emailing. So if you got questions, or if you want to let me know you're praying, that's fine to text me. I don't mind at all. But for a light for the day, there's a lot of different areas I could go. I thought about really doing it on patience, because the Lord's teaching me a lot about patience, and I really thought I was a patient man. And while I do think that we can all have different levels of patientness, if that's a word, there's still things that God is going to allow to test our patience. And this is just another test of my patience. And I am ready to be home with my son, my wife. I'm ready to, if I can say, get back to normal living. But the Lord has a different plan. And I don't understand what God is doing through right now, and I might never understand it. Yet He's in control until I get to heaven and I can find out. But what the Lord led me to today was in 1 Samuel chapter 15, a passage that many of us have probably heard messages on, and the Lord brought this to my mind. And in 1 Samuel chapter 15, verse 23, or in verse 22, Samuel comes to Saul and he says, "And Samuel said, Hath the Lord as great delight in burnt offerings and sacrifices as in obeying the voice of the Lord? Behold, to obey is better than sacrifice, and to hearken than the fat of rams. For rebellion is as the sin of witchcraft, and stubbornness is as iniquity and idolatry. Because thou hast rejected the word of the Lord, he hath also rejected thee from being king." So to give you a little context of this passage, Saul was told by God to kill all the Amalekites, to not leave a thing living. That was to kill all the animals, all the people, the king. Nothing was to be spared. They weren't supposed to take any spoil. God wanted utter destruction of these people. It was a very clear command. And as the story goes on, we see that King Agag was spared. Some of the best animals were spared. And Samuel comes to Saul and says, "Saul, why have you disobeyed me? Why are you not listening to the command of the Lord? Why are you doing, other things?" And Saul comes back and he has all these excuses. And he says, "Well, the people wanted to do this. The people wanted to make a sacrifice to you. The people wanted to offer these choice animals as a sacrifice to God." And we see a lot of blame shifting by Saul here, and that's a character of his to get out of the problem. But what I do find is a couple points in here that I want to share with you. First of all is that God does care about sacrifice. In these verses, Samuel says to Saul, "Hath the Lord as great delight in burnt offerings and sacrifices?" And the answer is God does delight in sacrifices, in the burnt offerings that they did at that time. And so God is okay with sacrifices. But what we do see that more than any sacrifice that we can give, more than anything that we can give to God and give back to Him and do for Him, God wants our simple obedience. Sure, God wants you to give to Him. God wants the offerings that you give. God wants the time. Maybe God wants you to be a teacher. But more than any sacrifice or offering you can give to God, God would rather your simple obedience, even if it's in the smallest, minute detail. One thing I wrote down as I was thinking about this, you could give God your entire bank account, but if God merely wants your service or your life, that money is worthless to Him. And so I see that God does care about our sacrifices, but even more than the sacrifices, God cares about our obedience. And I think as kids, we were taught we're to obey immediately, we're to obey completely, and we're to obey with the right heart attitude, with the right mind. And then the last little thing I thought about is that Samuel went and said, to God, rebellion and stubbornness is as witchcraft, iniquity, and idolatry. Us delaying to disobey or not giving what God asks or not being obedient to Him is just as bad as any witch, as anyone in idolatry, as anyone doing iniquity, murder, all these different sins. A Christian's stubbornness or disobedience is just as bad as those. And so, in closing and application, more than anything, God wants your simple obedience. Nothing more, nothing less. That's all God wants from us. And I'm thankful that even though the Christian life can be hard, even though there's trying times and problems in life and things we don't understand, what God wants is our simple obedience. God just wants us to come before Him and obey His word and do what He says. Thanks for watching today. I hope and pray you guys have a blessed day. I'm praying for you all, specifically talking to our church family. And I can't wait to be home and see you all. I miss you all. But thank you all for praying. And don't hesitate to text if you want to know any more details. I definitely have some time now to respond. Anyway, take care. Love you all. And that's Light for the Day.